All right, it looks like it's ready to me. They're both up there in the left-hand corner.
Okay, so it is 8:03. We'll call the meeting to order for the April 7th Police and Public Safety Committee. We'll start off by just asking for a motion to approve the minutes of the March 3rd meeting.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Bill, do I have a second?
Second.
Ryan? We're going to assume all in favor unless we hear anybody opposed. Hearing none, we'll approve those minutes. We're going to go right to operational. With the COVID-19 virus, the police department's tried to take some different tactics to minimize exposure to our officers. One of the things we've started to do is take reports over the phone rather than in person. The dispatch center talks with the complainant, checks to make sure that's okay with them, and then tells us, and we then follow up over the phone rather than in person. Obviously, if it's a call that requires our response to the residents, we do that. But again, that's just one of the things we're trying to do to minimize exposure to our officers, as well as anybody's residents we respond to. Secondly, our firearms training.
1 second on that. And so regarding that, how is the call volume during, the stay at home?
Fortunately, call volume is down. We're starting to see just a little bit of an uptick from the beginning of the stay-at-home, work-from-home thing from the governor. Now as the weather is getting a little warmer, I think people are getting out more, and so we're not seeing as many calls for service, whether that's people not feeling like maybe some of the things they might have called for in the past are quite as important to them given the circumstances.
And how are we doing with our parks and keeping social distancing there?
So we've placed two message boards, one at Blatnick Park indicating the playgrounds and pavilions are closed, as well as one in Lions Park just asking people to practice social distancing. The highway department has posted all the playgrounds and tennis courts. The dog park has been locked. So while we still see a lot of people out walking the dogs, they're leashed and that kind of thing. They're not running without leashes down at the parks. As as far as we can tell, our officers are patrolling the parks to make sure that people aren't using, playgrounds and pavilions or any of the ball fields. As long as it's passive use, they're allowed to be out on them, but no organized games or that kind of thing. So that's part of our patrol duties that we've asked the officers to kind of step up on. Anything else regarding that?
Yeah, I just had a question. So do we have one of those big signs up that says like stay at home? I think I saw one in Niskuna. I wasn't sure if it was for the
So I believe at one point, the county had two signs down on Rosendale Road asking people to practice social distancing, stay at home, wash your hands often, just an informational board that way. The town only has two of those boards. They're from the water sewer department that we utilize when they're not. So we've just chosen kind of to focus on the bike path in those two parks because that seems to be where social distancing is a bigger challenge for people because of its width and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw yesterday that the governor announced he was increasing the fines and calling on local governments to enforce the social distancing, increasing it from 500 to 1,000. There's a task force that's formed with a complaint. And then, have you heard anything about that, Chief?
I just saw the notice for people with a 800 number that they can call with that kind of thing. We're not seeing the larger gatherings in town up to this point. Again, anything we see, we're trying to advise people to not be gathering in the ball fields to have any kind of organized game or that kind of thing. But so far, we've been pretty good. People have been good about that. Again, I think the bike path is the biggest challenge because it's just the nature of the path itself. Staying 6 feet apart. So.
I was on the path on Saturday in Blatnick Park. There were a couple of kids playing on the field. Their parents were sitting on the sidelines. They were distancing. They were keeping themselves apart. And I concur. The bike path is a challenge, if you will. But most people that are on the path are either walking with someone or they're just passing by, that sort of thing. So I didn't see any large gatherings of more than 3 people.
Right, that's been our experience as well. Anyone else? Okay. Our spring firing range training has been postponed. Normally, we would train twice a year in the spring and in the fall, so we'll make some adjustments to that based on how this situation plays out. Morning, Deputy Chief.
No.
So once things settle down and we try to get back to normal at some point in the future, we will we'll get that spring training rescheduled, and also our reality-based training that we're going to begin as well. We just kind of put that on hold for now. Moving on, larcenies from vehicles. I had asked the supervisor back on Sunday to include in her briefing that we just advised town residents to lock their vehicles, take their valuables out of it. We've seen a little bit of an uptick now in thefts from the vehicles. So we're just asking residents to be conscientious of doing that. Obviously locking their houses, even if they're going out for a walk, that kind of thing, just as a proactive measure to make sure we don't, or that we can prevent, further thefts and that kind of thing.
We've had situations like this before, usually around this time, and I say this time of year, but when the weather gets warmer and things like that. I don't think this is something that, has to do with the pandemic and people being, home. I just, sometimes we see these things occurring in town. Correct?
We do. Our only concern at this point is with a lot of the retail shopping places being closed, that a lot of the shoplifting that might occur at those areas is no longer as prevalent. So they might look for other places to find, valuables and cash and that kind of thing. So again, just as a preventative measure, we just, want our residents to be cognizant about locking their valuables, out of sight in the car, or taking them out altogether and just locking their vehicles. Anything else on that? Yeah, all right. The radar speed signs. So we took delivery, or the highway department took delivery of our new speed sign. They are putting that together, getting it charged up, and getting it ready to be deployed. We've chosen Windsor Drive down by Fox Hollow for the placement of that sign. at some point when school is back in session, we'll be able to get a more accurate data count from that sign. But in the interim, it will certainly continue to just show the vehicle speed and that kind of thing. Doing a volume study at this point wouldn't really reflect anything that would be normal, but it will just help to reduce speeds there. So we're working with the highway department with that. Also with the other 2 speed signs that the town has. One has been taken from Dean Street and placed over on Consall Road. We've had a number of complaints over on Consall Road, so that has been placed at near the intersection of Taurus Road. And when the highway workers were out installing it, actually they got quite a bit of gratitude from some of the neighbors there who were happy to see that going up. So again, we'll continue to put things on a schedule for a period of time, have them out, and then move them to different places in the town. The county sign on Rosendale is still in place there. So that seems to be pretty effective. If you've driven down Rosendale Road going toward Lions Park, it catches your attention and really slows you down when you go into the 30-mile-an-hour zone there. So we appreciate the county's effort on that one. And then the other
does seem to be helping down there on Rosendale.
I'm sorry.
That sign on Rosendale does seem to be helping quite a bit. I do notice I travel that road every morning, and people, they back up behind me because I try to go the speed limit there, and then when you slow down even more. But so it is working, and then they back up when they see that sign.
Yep, and that's good to hear. And I think as people travel both directions, they recognize when they're coming home from work or that kind of thing, that sign is there, and they really start to pick up on the fact that it's a 30-mile-an-hour sign there. So that seems to be pretty effective. Just the other sign on Dean Street, we moved closer to Webster Drive, only because as signs sit too long, they kind of become part of the environment and they're not noticed quite as much. So even just the movement of that, 500 feet down the road gives people a different look as they're traveling there. And that's closer to the bottom of the hill. So as people are, maybe picking up speed, now it'll catch their attention and hopefully slow them down. So we're going to have, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So if you recall, we had met with Mark Gregory from Traffic Logic. That's the special sign that you said was delivered. What was the date that it was delivered? Because if you recall, we bought it kind of contingent that we would buy 4 more a month or 2 after we received it.
Yep. So I don't know the exact delivery date. I believe it ended up getting delivered to Water Sewer initially, and it was set off to the side because somebody didn't know what it was and that kind of thing. So there was probably a week delay on that as well. And I know Traffic Logic had a week and a half delay or something that they had expressed. So the highway does have it. They have to charge up the batteries. They have to put the different apparatus on it so that it can be posted to, signposts or, telephone poles, that kind of thing. So my guess is either, by the end of the week, it probably should be in place, but I'll
maybe
be in touch with Ray.
Send us an email, and then just keep in mind, so they don't expect us to buy it like immediately, but keep in mind if we want to make any changes to the specifications, because we can, if you realize we want a feature that we don't have, we don't need to be buying 4 carbon copies of the one that we received.
Right. I do know it has other functions, but I think what we put together in our initial specifications will be more than adequate because we'll be able to download data directly from the sign rather than putting it up into a cloud, which has a pretty hefty annual bill after the first year. But again, we don't need that. As long as we can house the data locally, we'll be able to use those for traffic studies and that kind of thing. So we should be good with those. Let's see. Next, our DCGS manpower study. They were going to come over and do a field site review. Obviously, that's been postponed with personnel reductions and with the state and that kind of thing. So when this settles down, we will reschedule that for another time. Last month we talked about April being the Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and there was a Cover the Cruiser program down at Union College that all the different agencies send a card to. People pledge donations and that kind of thing. They stick different decals to all the different patrol cars. Needless to say, that's been canceled as well, so we'll be waiting for a reschedule on that. Next is I have the alarm monitoring for the public hearing. That should probably be under town code, but it ended up here on the agenda. Alexis, did you want to speak to that at all?
So one point of clarification that the building department, I shared with them, the proposed change to the public law since they're involved in the permitting process. They had asked if the registration fee should be annual still. They believe it should just be a one-time permit fee if we're not doing monitoring.
So we don't charge an annual fee unless there is a third-party central station or an outside audible. Essentially, anytime someone is going to notify the dispatch center that there's an alarm going off, those require the annual fee. A lot of people now are going to things like Simply Safe or different over the internet kind of things that might notify the person directly. Those there's been debate over whether those should even have a building permit because it's essentially plug and play a computer device. There's no hard wiring into the residence or that kind of thing. So with regards to the building permit, that's something I think we could talk about. Anybody who's having an alarm installed with fire detection and that kind of thing where there's any kind of hard wiring, I think certainly the building department would say that's going to need a permit. The annual fee, that's for anyone, again, where an alarm company would be contacting us for a response or an outside audible if it goes off. If it's just an internal that it calls the person's cell phone and lets them know that there's motion in their living room or something like that, I don't believe that an annual fee is appropriate there. So
we can remove that one. So because it currently says section 55(5), subparagraph D, each permit shall be subject to renew annually on or before the 31st day of January. So that language can come out.
Yeah, with regards to the permit, for sure. Again, we're just, there's a registration fee in the beginning for any alarm that's central station or outside audible, whether it's residential or commercial, and that's just a recurring fee each year, and I think it's 30 for residential and 50 for commercial currently. Obviously, all the false alarm fees still apply and that kind of thing. So it's really more just about the monitoring fee that we need to remove. That's the biggest thing.
I've got a question for you about the false alarm fees, and this is something we
Yes.
have to address at some point. So if people have their own system that they've installed themselves and it's only monitored by them on their cell phone, and then they call the dispatch center, right, because their alarm went off on their phone and they're not home and they think there's a problem, they call the dispatch center and they tell them that, and then they respond. We're sort of in this, and we could be in the same situation as people having a monitoring company, other than they're just doing it themselves.
Correct. So if we're responding to, I was going to say, if we're responding for an alarm, and it is an actual break, or if it's a malfunction of the system, or it's an accidental activation, at the home because one of the children went to school and forgot to disable it, or whatever the case might be. They'd be charged a false alarm fee in that case. So anytime we're responding to an alarm activation, whether no matter how it's reported to us, whether it's the neighbor calling because the outside audible is going off, or whether it's the homeowner calling us because their motion detector went off in the living room, we still treat that as an alarm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just one other point. I know Councilman McPartlin has said this during his committee reports, and that we've talked about it. There's the public education component that needs to be done. You said perhaps sending out like an informational letter with the next bill. Is that something with the next water and sewer bill to everyone, or are you just going to contact the 140 people who have services with the town currently?
So if it fell where we could put a letter in with a water bill, we would do that after the board decides whether to be done with the monitoring and that kind of thing. But if we couldn't get it in with that bill, we would send out our own mailer, and we have to send it to more than just the current active ones. We have to send it to anyone who's ever had an alarm registered with us. Because if the house sells and somebody else just turns on the alarm, expecting to go, terminate with the police department or that kind of thing, we want to make sure they're aware of it too, that the police department won't monitor.
So Alexis, is your point that are your thoughts that we should be doing this before the public hearing, or after the public hearing, before the board votes on this?
I think we can do it in conjunction because. So semi-annually, and Chief, you can jump in. I have in my notes back from November that this had to be done before June 2020 if we were going to go forward with it. Since the public hearing would be held on April 30th, the local law wouldn't be enacted until the following regular meeting, which is end of June. So we have some time, but I was just looking back to my notes that said make sure to inform the public before June 2020.
So we had talked about the reason we wanted to do it by June is to get that kind of letter out, notify the town residents, and continue monitoring through the end of the year. So it really wouldn't begin until January 1st of 2021. And that way it gives people more than enough time to have any corrections they need done with a third-party alarm service, or if they're going to disconnect it altogether and go to more of a Simply Safe, or just not have their alarm working anymore. We want to give them plenty of time, but we would continue to monitor through the end of the year that way. And that way we could answer any questions if there were any over the 6-month period, but we wanted to give them at least that much time.
If you were able to have a mock-up of the letter that you would send to residents, I mean, we could attach it or bring it for committee review. I know there was a townwide letter. I know there was commentary in the past that it should go through committee, and town board should have a heads up of it so that if they hear about it from residents or have contact. So although it's not required to be resolved or anything, just something maybe we want to run through committee at least.
Right. I think we would send specific letters to to those who have been had alarms registered with them. Otherwise, I think maybe just a newspaper article and website type things, just to notify people that it's happening, and then they could refer to the web page for any further instructions. I don't think we need to do a full town-wide mailer. Anything else on that? All right, fleet and equipment, decontamination of department vehicles. So Niskayuna Tire, they are our vendor for performing vehicle maintenance. 2 weeks ago, they purchased some equipment that can help us further decontaminate our vehicles. It's ozone technology, and on delivery, he offered it to the police department and all his customers as just a free service. So we can have that done on our vehicles on a periodic basis for a more of a deeper decontamination. It still includes, a full wipe down with antiviral and that kind of thing. In addition, at the end of every shift, our officers wipe our cars down for all the common surfaces, steering wheel, shifters, radios, computers, anything that, they would touch during their shift. And we do that at the end of each shift as well. So that seems to be working pretty well. With regards to our wipes, actually Lowe's made a generous donation to us. So we have quite a few cans of wipes, the antiviral wipes. So that was a big help. Just additionally to that, we had a town resident make a donation of N95 respirator masks that we're able to use now. So that helped us out because those are really the hardest equipment to come by. We were able to get gloves through regular ordering. Again, we have the wipes, but the masks are very scarce. So this resident actually had a pretty good supply and donated those to us, which was extremely generous.
Are you using them on a daily basis, or are you saving them more for contact with the public? Because OSHA did issue guidance over the weekend about, specifically fitting of those respiratory PPE and making sure that, keeping track of the inventory so we know if we need to order more.
Yeah, you kind of broke up there. We're pretty judicious with putting the supplies out, so we're not wasting them and that kind of thing. So the inventory, we also work with the county. They just provided us with 8 gallons of the New York State hand sanitizer. So we're able to put that in each car in between. So we do place things on order, but a lot of things go on back order. So we try to, beg, borrow what we can and to get us through. But the inventory, obviously, when we start running low on things, we've got the orders in, and we rely on different agencies and the county to help us out. And when we can help them out, we're obviously trying to do that as well. So we're pretty good in supplies right now. That should certainly carry us, between 30 and 45 days. So we're pretty good with that. With regards to the fit testing on the N95 masks, that provision's actually been waived due to the shortage of them. But there are donning procedures that we follow to make sure that the masks fit and people are able to understand how they are to don them and take them off. And we also, unless there's an actual exposure, we're reusing them per the CDC guidelines. So everything we're doing is again through county health, CDC, and it's working thus far pretty well. Building decontamination, Charlie Bergami and Ron Luby are in each day wiping down our portion of the town hall. Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I tried to jump in there a little bit late here.
That's okay.
I just had a comment about the PPE. If you feel like you need any more, we're going to be registering for an Amazon business account. They do prioritize essential services like law enforcement. So we need to get other PPE for our other departments. So if you need any, we'd rather have more than fewer, so that there's not rationing of the PPE at all. Again, because we don't know exactly how long this is going to last. So just let me know if you feel like you need any more, and we'll try to get an order in real quick.
Absolutely. And we do have a couple of vendors, Staples for one, that we are registered with them as a law enforcement agency. That's
Okay.
where we got our gloves, I believe, and things like that. So,
Okay, great.
but I will be in contact for that. Thank you. Sorry,
Yep.
and I'm just talking fast, so.
No,
if
don't worry
anybody-
about it. I didn't realize I had muted myself, so. But thank you.
Absolutely. Again, just with building contamination, Charlie Brighami and Ron Lupi are over on our side of the building every morning, doing wipe downs of hard surfaces, railings, doorknobs, and that kind of thing. So that's appreciated. And our clerks as well are staying up with that throughout the day. Down to training, all our training has been put on the back burner. And again, as things resolve in the future with this, we will reschedule all of our training that way. Citizen issues. We received an email from Aaron Hall of Dean Street. He is just reiterating past concerns about commercial vehicle traffic on Dean Street, complaints of speeding vehicles, a request for road calming measures in the future. I know we had talked certainly over the last couple of years, and with the county planning to reconstruct Dean Street at some point, I think there was going to be some discussion about whether they were going to implement any road calming measures, at that point. But I think that falls more under Laura Robertson's committee that way, and the highway department for that. We continue again to have our one sign down there and collecting data. Obviously the data is not normal for volume and that kind of thing. It doesn't separate between commercial traffic and regular passenger things. So we're in the area, monitoring that kind of thing. And we'll continue to do that. Ben Mastriani, go ahead.
On Dean Street. So we, as you said, we continue our enforcement there. He continues to talk about concrete trucks going up and down Dean Street. Have we seen that? Have any of our officers seen that? And have we reached out to, I think he does specify the concrete company that seems to be going up and down there. Have we reached out to them at all?
I know Stan Faminsky was looking into some type of weight limit plan, if they were going to do that. But currently, Dean Street doesn't have a weight limit because of it being a county route. So that's kind of part and parcel of that. There have been informational signs placed on both Knott Street and Providence Avenue with suggested truck routes. But again, from an enforcement side, there is no current weight limit on Dean Street. I don't know what the county's plan with that would be. But I have not gotten a lot of reports of commercial traffic, but that certainly doesn't mean that it's not out there. So we will just continue what we can do, and at some point in the future, again, with the road calming measures and that kind of thing, that might be one avenue to take.
And I can comment on the weight limit. Is Stan, are you on the call? You might be.
Yeah, I'm here.
You are? Okay, yeah. So if
Yep.
you want to fill everybody in on the research that you've done regarding the weight limit.
Well, there's no real requirements regarding the placing weight limits on the roadways. Basically, the purpose for the weight limits is for public safety and safety for the traffic that's on the road. I'm looking into the resolutions that we've done years and years ago in regards to Van Antwerp, Rosendale, and a couple other streets in town in regards to the weight limit. It's just a matter of deciding what the real purpose of the weight limit would be, other than neighbors not wanting to see commercial vehicles. There's got to be some cause for concern in regards to, like I said, traffic safety. For instance, Rosendale Road with the sharp S curves, the White Bridge, and the steep grades cause problems for the commercial vehicles and traffic going while the trucks are on the road. So we're still looking into what we can do for Dean Street. In regards to the concrete mixers, there's not a lot of construction going on right now, so I don't know how much additional traffic there is on Dean Street there. I can check with the company to make sure that they remember to take alternate routes other than Dean Street. That's about it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on Dean Street? Okay, the other email I had received was from Ben Mastriani of Wyoming Avenue, just reporting speeding in the area. Again, this is a street that borders the city of Schenectady. It comes right up a couple hundred feet up the road till it hits the town line. We do monitor over there and have done enforcement. His last email was actually regarding a domestic incident that we had responded to over in that area, and not so much a vehicle complaint on that part, but he does report speeding. So we'll continue over there, and certainly as the schedule with the street signs, radar signs change, that will be a road as well that we'll look to deploy one of those. Anything else on citizen issues that anyone has? Okay. I don't have anything for community events because I believe everything certainly in the near future has been canceled. Town code, we did discuss the public hearing for the alarm monitoring. Michelle, do you have anything else for the town code that you wanted to talk about?
No, just that the dog licensing is going very well. We registered 271 new dogs in the month of March. We had 109 renewals that went out in March, and only 24 of them didn't come back as of yet.
Okay.
That's progressing well. And it did pay off yesterday that a dog was licensed. We had a person fishing down at Lions Park, and he found a dog that was seemed to be injured, and he called me because he did have his tag on the dog, and I was able to track down the owner. I called her, and she went right over and got him.
That's great.
That's great.
That's That's part of what licensing is all about. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think we may have actually had another successful chip reader identification as well since the
Oh,
last
good.
meeting. So that's pretty well as well.
Thank you.
Anything else for town code? Alexis, did you have anything for the town code?
No, I will make sure I send out the proposed local law to you and Councilman McPartlin before I send it out to make sure it conforms with all of the changes you want, and I'll make sure that building also has a chance to review.
Okay, very good. Court issues. Judge, are you still with us?
I am here. Yeah, we are treading water. Office of Court Administration essentially shut us down until approximately mid-May, as it is right now. So no regular court calendar. We are still handling the arraignments that need to get done, anything with orders of protection, license suspenditures, any arrests based on arrest warrants or bench warrants. We're rotating our clerks through. They're just to cover, retrieving messages, opening the mail, getting cases entered, because we're expecting a wall of cases once we're allowed to reopen, criminal as well as civil. All evictions have been put on hold by the state. So at some point, all those are going to come together, and we're anticipating potentially having some additional court days. We may have, for example, summary proceeding days where we're going to handle a bunch of arraignments all on the same day, just to try to clear the calendar and spread things out. We're also trying to shift to video arraignments. They've been doing it down in family court for the past month or so, where a duty judge, right now it's a city court judge, is handling all of the morning arraignments for the county, but they want all of the courts to be able to do that. So I was in yesterday trying to get our system upgraded, but hopefully we'll be upgraded with that soon. They also want to be able to do arraignments from NISCUNA booking. So I talked to the deputy chief about that, just in terms of what equipment we might actually have and what we might need. We are going to have to purchase probably a computer with a web camera, so that we can not only have the judges call in, but also so defense counsel can join remotely. And that's going to help not only with what we're dealing with right now, but there's a gap in the law with adolescent offenders, the whole raise the age issue, because some of those arrests require orders of protection, some of those arrests require bail, and we're not allowed to hold those individuals at the jail pre-arraignment. So they have to get arraigned, but we have to have counsel present. So it might be the kind of thing where we're going to need to be able to do a 2 a.m. video arraignment to get somebody from the public defender's office there, by video to arraign. So if we're able to set up booking to do that, it may solve future problems as well as the current.
Okay. I know we talked about that just amongst ourselves too, Judge, and whether the equipment should be in booking or maybe just have it out at the bench, so that way there's less chance of it being damaged or that kind of thing. So something we could talk about going forward.
Yeah, where I think is we can decide whatever works best for us, and it won't be the same for every agency, whether it's in booking or it's in the court or it's in one of the meeting rooms in the back of the court, for example. We will have to figure out how we're going to do that. I have to get through the logistics of it with OCA before we can do it.
So are you guys working with Bill Lawrence on this to have him provide the equipment?
I will be once we figure out exactly what we need. I was saying, because this is kind of it's really the court's issue with OCA telling us they want to be able to do this. I'm willing to make the purchases and such out of the court budget once we figure out exactly what it is we need. And I
You might want to speak to him. I don't, it doesn't seem like it needs to be, as you said, it needs to be a web capable computer. He may have laptops. I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud that he might have some equipment that he could use or you could use for that.
I'm trying to get the specs from OCA now to find out what exactly it has to be able to do. We weren't even able to get our current court laptop up and running yesterday. They use Skype for Business. We've got an old OCA provided Windows 7 laptop. Felt like I had to turn the crank to get the thing going. So it might be more than just what we have to get for the arraignment part, for the defendant part. We may have to do some upgrades on the court part too. But yeah, I'll talk to Bill once we find out exactly what it is we need to be able to do. We are going to need, for example, simple stuff like a dedicated email address, because they do it with Skype for Business and use an email address to join the arraignments. But that should be a relatively simple thing to get set up. But hopefully this week I'll get the court end of it set up, and then we can actually do the arraignments. Once the court end of it is set up, we can do the arraignments with the defendant down at the county jail, held there. The judge can come in and do the arraignment from the Niskin court. That'll be the first test.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Moving on to the fire departments. Chief Dale?
See if I can get myself unmuted. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Okay. Something that Chief, your staff probably has already seen, but just for everybody else's awareness, both Stanford Heights and Fire District 2 have altered their response model to medical calls. This is all based on recommendations coming from Department of Health, and they are only responding to more life-threatening type emergencies. They're not responding to the more minor type calls. The ambulance services are still responding, so there is a response going. This is just in an effort to help protect personnel to minimize exposure where it really isn't urgently necessary. And obviously, once this blows over, I'm sure they'll be going back to their normal response models. But I know in some communities, the emergency services have gotten some kickback, either from elected officials or from their constituents. So I just figured I'd make you guys aware that that is going on. As far as District 1 is concerned, because we run the ambulance, we're still responding to everything, though we are taking some steps to minimize our personnel exposure on the calls as much as possible. PPE wise, I think we're much in the same situation as the police department. Right now, we're in pretty good shape. We had some leftover N95s from the some of the previous viruses that have come through. So that got us started, and we too have been able to secure stuff through our normal vendors, as well as through the Office of Emergency Management from the state stockpiles. And as well as the police department, our call volumes we've noticed are down. That's actually pretty much a statewide trend, with the exception of New York City. But in talking to one of the chiefs down there, their hospitals are actually seeing a reduction in emergency room activity. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with just the fact that people aren't out and about, moving around and getting hurt and doing things. So that's actually good news. We keep in touch with DOH, the regional hospitals, and of course the county OEM, as Chief McManus does. And the regional hospitals are also seeing a lower frequency of ER visits, which is good. Should the other shoe drop, which we're all kind of crossing our fingers that it doesn't, but should it drop, at least it puts them in a better position to handle it. Let's see. So far, we've been good as far as staffing goes. We haven't lost anybody. We've had a couple that have gone into quarantine for a couple of weeks related to outside work, but they've all been cleared through that without any issues. And we are restricting access to our stations to emergency response only. No meetings are going on. And anybody coming in the station is subject to medical monitoring. We're monitoring our staff twice a day with temperatures and just checking for symptoms. There is, I don't know if probably a lot of you saw it on the news, there is some public testing access for COVID-19 that's going on down at UAlbany. They've set one up down there. There's a 888 number, I believe it is, to that you have to call. You get screened over the phone, and then if you meet whatever their criteria is, they give you a number, and then you can report down there and get a test completed. That just started yesterday morning, I believe. And they, from at least from the medical perspective, from Albany Med and St. Peter's physicians, they believe that they are giving some priority to first responders and those types of folks, but I don't know that for sure. But I think Chief's aware that all the hospitals are testing symptomatic first responders. So if we do have somebody that comes down with symptoms, we can get them tested and get the results back. From what we've been told so far, it sounds like Albany Med would be the place to go because they are testing in-house. So their turnaround time is hours versus days for any of the other hospitals because they have to send it down to Wadsworth for testing. And that looks like, yeah, that's all I got right now.
All right.
We got our bulletproof vests in yesterday, but I don't think they're going to help us much for the COVID.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Chief. Regarding the school district, obviously the governor extended the school closure out another 2 weeks, so the end of April. Brian, are you aware of anything at the school district level that that's changed other than the closures? I know they're doing some work from home or learning from home and that kind of thing, but
yeah, that's going on. We also, from a town standpoint, delivered the signed MOU for the video surveillance. So that's done and that's set. The district leadership is meeting on a daily basis. So they're planning for continuing new learning going on and meals. That's all that's still in place and all still moving forward.
okay, perfect. Thank you. And I know we were still going to try at some point to look at those surplus mats the school district had down in transportation, but we kind of just put that off for now. So hopefully they'll still be there when we can get down to view them. Personnel wise, Officer Kulira, he's progressing well through FTO. He's probably got about another 4 weeks to go through that, and in and around May 1st or so, he should be out on his own. Sergeant Party, he was deployed through the Guard down to New York City to assist with operations down there. So we're wishing him well and that he stays safe and healthy until he can come back up here and join us. And Miss Kamika Mosier, she will start on May 1st after she has just finished up with the Schenectady Police. So we're looking forward to that as well. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up?
Hey, just one thing for the group. The town board did approve the employee safety manual at the last meeting. So those are being, there's a plan to print those, bind those, and actually distribute those out through the Human Resources Department in the near future.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just one thing I wanted to note, well, I guess actually two things. First, we just want to make sure that this is uploaded to YouTube after it's recorded. I was just Committee on Open Government just issued, a summary of how executive order interplays with the suspension of requirements for in-person attendance by the public, and they clarified that you need to post the recording afterwards. So, second, wait, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Second, I just want to confirm
Okay.
that the resolution for this month is public hearing on the changes to the alarm chapter of the code. There's no other resolutions needed.
That's correct. I assume we're still going to be allowed to have these public hearings, even though they're going to be remote like this.
Yeah, we provided an email address in the notice that was sent to the Gazette. It's going to be published on Friday so that people can submit their comments via email.
Okay.
Oh, what I was going to ask is, sorry, we had the resolution to install a no parking here to corner sign on Schwaber. Did that ever
Yes.
happen?
Yeah, there are signs posted there. Highway Department got those up. I saw those probably on Thursday or Friday, so. All right. Anything else? Anyone? I don't want to miss anything. All right. Hearing none. Is there a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
That's the one. Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, thanks, Supervisor.
A date for the next meeting?
The date for the next meeting is May 5th. Hopefully in the Schaefer Room, but if not, on this format again. So I got a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. If there's nobody opposed, I'll assume all are in favor. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much. And the meeting
Thanks.
closed at 8:59. Thanks very much.
Everybody.
Everybody have a great day.
Stay healthy.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too, Michelle.
Thanks.